Hey SEOs and content marketers, say goodbye to crazy spreadsheet mashups and experience unprecedented connectivity between your SEO planning and reporting data. Introducing Audience Key, technology for keyword mapping, content brief automation, and rank tracking that form an SEO strategy system providing unparalleled feedback loops between planning, reporting, and optimization activities. Put your time and energy into strategy, not data upkeep. Visit audiencekey.com and apply for a free trial today. Hey everyone, welcome to Webcology here on WMR.fm. It's the 17th of August, 2023. This is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media, Christine Schackinger from Sites Without Walls, and it's August 17th. Like, if you live in some of the more southern states, your kids are back in school already. If you live in some of the more northern states, your kids are going back to school really soon. Either way, summer's over. It's mind-blowing how fast it goes. Please do yourself a favor, get outside, enjoy nature, get away from the desk, get away from the screen. I'm telling you, this is a mental health thing. A lot of us work alone, and there's a lot of stress in a lot of our lives. Well, you have summer and beautiful, beautiful weather to enjoy. Please take the time to enjoy it. I say this every year, and I mean it every year. Hey, Christine, how you doing? How you doing this beautiful day?
I'm doing good. In Vegas, we have 2 summers. So my second summer starts soon, and that's when I'll be able to go outside. Although we've been lucky, we had monsoon season this year, so it's been just below 100. But before that, it was 115. A little toasty.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. You got to get outside.
That is something people definitely got to be careful of. The world is getting warmer, and warm is actually getting more dangerous. So be awfully, awfully careful and stay the heck hydrated. But it just blows me away how fast summer goes every year we have. And again, maybe that's because I'm from a place that has incredibly short but intense summers. But it all goes, again, it goes so quickly. And earlier today, I was looking at my calendar, and in my train, I saw 2023, and it just blew me away and occurred to me that we are almost at the 20th anniversary of kind of like the day the universe changed in SEO. The 20 years ago, in a couple months from now, November 16th-ish, 2003, Google introduced what was called the Florida update, which is actually an introduction of like the hilltop algorithm. But it was the first time Google had introduced a major algorithm update, and it threw the SEO world on its head. It was the beginning of Google understanding the web by comparing every document against every other document, not just the link profile of every document against every other document, but Google wrote out about how it was creating dossiers, lifetime dossiers on domains and the URLs within the domains and the relationships between all data points on those URLs with each other. Before that, they had done, like keyword relationships and link profiles. So it was a fundamentally different way of looking at relevancy, and it threw the SEO world off 6 weeks before Christmas. And this was back in a time when Google made a change to its index that could take a month for the next change to occur. And in fact, they occurred on a fairly regular basis. So 6 weeks before Christmas, and all through the house, all the rankings were gone.
Yeah.
And everyone freaked. It was the weirdest day.
I was not in search at the time. I was in tech, not search. But I started the year after. But I do think it's interesting. I have a quote from Larry Page, not Google. Larry Page.
That's actually pretty much the voice of Google back then.
Yeah, back then, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's like, instead of Google's like PR team, right? It was Larry Page. But his quote was, "The perfect search engine would understand exactly what you mean and give back exactly what you want. This update implemented certain filter mechanisms for a number of keywords, resulting in massive change in website rankings on Google. The main goal of the Florida update was that Google search engine should deliver best quality results and the best match results to the user search request. Since there were a lot of problems with link spam and incorrect search results before the Florida update, Google planned extreme changes in their PageRank algorithm in 2003. Extreme meaning, if I remember correctly, like people literally 90% loss, right? Like it was, that's what I read.
We're talking like Black Monday, New York Stock Exchange jumping off the ledge sort of loss. Um, we had, I think at the time I was working with Ross Dunn at Stepforth, and we had 25, 30 clients on the go, and they were all doing pretty well because we were really, really good at what we were doing. And it was straight up, it was much easier then.
Yeah.
And I came in that day. I was a head SEO at Stepforth. I came in, and the just decimation of God. Like the rankings were God. We still had some pages that were performing okay, but according to Google Analytics, I was like, what the heck was it that we were measuring with? I forget. It was some form of urchin. It could have been urchin again. What was it though? Anyway, just tailspin everywhere. No, it wasn't even that. It was rank checkers that we were using. It wasn't even urchin. It wasn't even in the form of Google Analytics. It was rank checkers we were using.
That's right, because I was measuring that stuff. I just wasn't doing SEO yet. So yeah.
And so again, decimation gone. Rankings tanked. And this wasn't just Stepforth clients. This was everyone's clients.
Oh yeah. It's sort of like biblical though, because as in the Bible, when God released the flood, he released a rainbow and said he would never do that again. Google said they're going to do a major update like that again right before Christmas because of the damage that occurred.
So you're suggesting God lied. Because in this case, the great deity.
Last 5 years or so, they have not been quite as good about that promise.
Well, there's been updates since 2003. There's been, SEO Moz could number the updates. I can't. I'm going to say innumerable, but check Moz because they've actually gone and traced them.
But when Matt was in charge, he did always say every year he would not do a major update between, I think it was like September and Christmas.
And every year they did. And every year they ended up doing it. They did. Come on, tell me they didn't. They did. Check Moz.
I thought they did smaller ones though. Did they have big ones?
Oh no, they had huge ones, but nothing like Florida. Oh, yeah. Again, maybe when Matt was saying we're never going to do another major update again with his little dinosaur hands, he was he was actually saying we're never going to do another one as big as Florida again, and that's the size they were relative to.
That might be, yeah. Oh, by the way, so people don't think you were just making fun of Matt. Matt did a whole video of him as a dinosaur with dinosaur hands. So.
Indeed. Oh, he used to often tuck his elbows in when sitting at a desk and explaining things. It always looked like he had dinosaur hands.
So then he made a video he had to make fun. Yeah. I would like to go ahead.
Well, the thing, so Florida was really, for a lot of us, I think, Florida was, Danny Sullivan popularized SEO and popularized working on websites in relation to what search engines wanted. That was in the mid to late 90s. Then people like Bruce Clay and Mike Rehan and the real old guard, Web Gorilla, Greg Bozer, Todd Friesen. Those guys took what Danny was preaching and really made an art out of it. Ross Dunn was one of those guys.
Yeah.
And then there's a small gathering around it. But then Florida hit, and a few people started writing about Florida. And because it changed everything, not just for SEOs, but for webmasters in general, they suddenly became interested in SEO. And that was the day that SEO became uber popular.
Well, let's just say, like, link spamming and buying links and all that back then was really common. Like, it wasn't the thing that it is now where you just wouldn't do it because of all the history we have with what happens when you do that. So the things that you guys were doing, just really common ways to get your stuff to appear in search.
Well, yeah. Although again, for what it's worth, back then, link networks, we were writing about relevancy and writing about the importance of a hamburger stand probably shouldn't link to an auto shop because there's no relation between the two of them unless you got a drive through. But even that's a stretch. So there was responsible outright link spamming back then.
Yes, yes.
But it was outright link spamming for sure
Yeah, I
in
was.
today's eyes. But
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I thank Google for Florida. Like, honest to goodness, Florida made my career. And I think there was a few other people who can say the same thing. We were all writing about the greatest thing that had changed in Google in the 5 years that Google had existed in the public eye, and everyone in the world was interested.
Well, that's probably why I heard about it, because I was doing front end dev and design work, and I was working at a company, and I started reading about this SEO thing, and that was around 2003, 2004. So yeah, that's always why it became so well known. Because before that, I'd been in tech for a little while and never heard of a company doing SEO, and I was building websites all that time. So not that they didn't do it. I just think the company that I work for didn't, but it wasn't that well known until, you're right, probably Florida.
So I put up a thing on Facebook a few hours before going to air this morning when it occurred to me, oh my God, it's like 20 years now. And Mike Rehan made a long response about what happened. And SES was chugging along. It was very popular with SEOs, and it was getting larger and larger. But Chicago happened in December 2003, and it's like the conference doubled in size because people were so freaked out about what happened with the Florida update.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, the last point on that was Brett Tabke named the Florida update after a PubCon conference he wanted to hold in Florida.
Oh, okay, cool.
If anyone wonders how that happened.
I did not know that. Real quick though, I would like to make one just note. If anyone from Google ever listens to the show, we know
they do,
week, right? These original algorithms were rolled out to catch people doing what Google didn't want you to do, right? Link spam, text, all that. So they're very severe. Hey, we're punishing you, whatever. Nowadays, the updates are pretty obscure, like helpful content update. Like, even as an SEO, I think I know what they're targeting, but not 100% sure yet. Actually targeting, I know what they say they're targeting, but till you see a site and recover it, you don't know for sure. Could we say to Google it's time to stop the 80 and 90% traffic loss? Like 40 to 50% would still get the message across, but all these mid-sized and small businesses I run across had no idea any of this stuff existed. They're not buying links, they're not spamming, they're not keyword stuffing, they're not, using, spinner articles. They have people writing stuff, they think they have a good site, they're not over abusing ads, anything like that. And suddenly they wake up and they're 80% down, 70, 80, 90% down in traffic, and they can't recover until they fix it and it runs again. And we're talking 6 months, 8 months. And for a small business, mid-sized business, that's a really, really long time.
That's pretty hard. That's a really hard thing, given how the deck is stacked against small business, just in the way the machine operates to begin with. Mm-hmm. And from how to say this, not to defend Google exactly, but at least before, if they didn't like what you were doing, they smushed you. They smashed you on purpose. They were like, hey, you bug, I'm going to smush you. And they went about doing that. Today, they don't do that. What they do instead is they go, hey, bug, you see the guy next to you who's doing the right thing? I'm going to promote them. And it's basically the same thing as getting smushed, because people who are doing, because they ignore you and other people do well. Now, here's the problem with the idea of the SERPs. There's 10 blue links on the front page, and we live on a growing web. There's 10 companies today and 100 companies tomorrow, all vying for the same placements.
But these are smushes, like helpful content smushes you and keeps you in a sandbox for 3 months.
Well, and that's not being able to come out of not being able to compete with your neighbor who is being rewarded for doing better. It is effectively putting a glass ceiling on top of you.
Yeah, but in these cases, these are literally devaluations. They're not just raising people. When you get helpful content, they evaluate how many pages they don't think meet the requirements, and they give you the smush based on that. Then for 3 months, you're not allowed to recover. And then once you fix it after the 3 months, you might recover. So some of the algorithms I know do just promote, but there are some still that smush. And my point to Google, if they ever listen to this, was just maybe we could lessen it to like 40 or 50%. So the mom and pop business, like one I have where he supports his wife who has a disability on this one website, isn't, thinking they're going to have to sell their house because they got smushed. Maybe 40%, then they can still get income, because they can't go buy a bunch of ads, right? That's not what they can do. So for the small to mid-sized businesses, I just think Google could maybe ease up on the non-spam smushes. So I like that word used, smush. Like if it's not spam related, like you're buying links or something, maybe we could ease up on how severe the smush is, because that still gets the point across. They still will fix it, but they're just not so far down. They don't know if they can survive.
Well, again, I'm not sure how they would do that. They demote to like page 2 instead of page 7.
Usually it's at the keyword level or the page level. So maybe, when they put a dampener on, you can see it when the site's down. They can't get any big spikes. They have a dampener, and that dampener is a certain percentage. So I'm just saying, however they do it internally, this is my message to the world right now. Maybe if it's not a spammy update, it's just a regular helpful content or reviews or something, maybe they could be less punitive, because, I know why they did it originally. People were doing things like, TV on link networks and stuff, but that's not usually the case anymore.
Speaking of punitive throttling, yes. Now that you mentioned it, speaking of punitive throttling, so Twitter X is in our news stream a little bit more than I think anyone ought to be comfortable with this week, but ain't that always the way with these guys? Okay, so what a petty thing, but apparently on the 14th, 15th, somewhere around there, Twitter started the practice of adding a 5-second delay when a user tries to click over to a bit.ly, a shortened link, to somewhere like, I don't know, the New York Times, Facebook, someplace that Elon Musk doesn't like. Say you're going, I don't know, the NAACP or maybe Southern Poverty Law Center or somewhere like that, you're probably going to get a 5-second delay if there was a shortened link going there. That, the last time Elon hate throttled anything, he had to buy a new pair of socks.
Yeah. By the way, I know you hate covering this. I do too, but we do have to cover briefly the fight.
Oh, come on. I want recognition for that. That was a good joke.
It was a good joke. I laughed.
That was amazing. Laugh, right? Okay, so, somebody ought to punch both of them in the nose, I think.
Well, actually, Zuckerberg, okay.
You get punched in the nose anyway.
I'm not a big fan of Zuck, but some of the stuff he's done. But he did put out a tweet this week that said, "I'm just calling this off. I've given you a place, a time, a location. Someone will set it up at one of the MMA people." I forget which one.
Dana White.
Dana White. That's right. I should know that. MMA Vegas,
promoter.
Right? I should know that.
He was going to put it in Rome's Colosseum, for God's sake.
Yeah. So Musk said, "Oh, surgery. Oh, I might have to get surgery." So Zuck's like, "Forget it. This is ridiculous."
He went even one further. Not only might he have to get surgery, he went, "Can we have a practice session in your backyard?" Like wuss out or what?
Yeah, but then Musk, being the 5-year-old he always is. Oh, that's an insult to 5-year-olds. Oh, now wants to go to Zuck's house to fight.
Now, when last time Musk shot his mouth off stupidly like this, he created a verbal contract that actually trapped him into having to spend way too much to buy Twitter X, right?
Yeah, true.
Is there any judge in America? Is there any judge in the United States at all? I don't care what district, that will enforce a verbal contract where Zuckerberg or where Musk asks Zuckerberg to punch him in the nose? Is there any court in the land that will do this? Because I think the verbal contract has been made. I just want to see it completed.
I do too. For charity. It's for charity. So
I know what. Hundreds of American dollars I would pay to watch this happen. I'm not kidding. Solve homelessness.
This is what Musk said about going to his house. For the Tesla FSD drive in Palo Alto tonight, I'll ask the car to drive to Twitter name house, Zuckerberg, We'll also test X live stream video so you can monitor our adventure in real time. If we get lucky and Zuck, we put out a tongue emoji, actually answers the door, the fight is on, the SpaceX founder wrote on X. And then the PR person for Zuck wrote back, he's not there. But like how silly. Like Zuckerberg, I have to say, did actually try to set up a real fight because he actually, if people don't know and haven't listened to us before, he has been training and he's been fighting for a few years now, and he's actually fairly decent at it. So Musk got himself into a position he can't get out of, it seems, but he just gets sillier and sillier. At least he's not asking to measure male parts this week. So.
And as long-term listeners might know, I don't really care. I just like seeing Nazis get punched in the nose. I just love seeing Nazis get punched in the nose. And I think it's safe to, there's an old saying, if there's three people at the table and one of them is a Nazi, there's three Nazis sitting at a table.
That's true. And that's why
you do not ever in any way, there's no plausible reason to be Nazi adjacent. Hi, I'm standing beside a Nazi. There's no reason for that in the world except that you accept the Nazis' ideology. And if you accept the Nazis' ideology as anything legitimate, you yourself are a Nazi. And this brings us to
Nazi adjacent advertising.
Yeah, so
it's not funny, but just so people know, when we say Nazi here, it's literally a Nazi.
It's literally a Nazi, somebody who believes that the state should exercise control over the economy and over the direct rights of its citizens, including using coercive measures such as concentration camps and death squads.
They've actually posted this kind of stuff on the Twitter account. I saw the tweet. So we just wanted people to know we're not using Nazi as a euphemism. It's literally Nazi.
If you are a brand, including Sports Illustrated, Gilead Sciences, USA Today, the Internet and Television Association, or others, 60 some others, according to the nonprofit Media Matters for America, your content was verified to be beside not verifiable Nazi content. And for what it's worth, the Internet and Television Association, and interestingly, Gilead Sciences, have immediately removed their advertising spend from X, formerly known as Twitter. Others, I believe, are pausing their ads, or considering it. They ought to consider it, because you can't be seen to be Nazi adjacent. You just can't. You cannot. And interesting here that Gilead Sciences, I can see them wanting to get the hell away from that. The name.
Yeah. They and it's not just, it's like numerous brands were not just that one Holocaust account, Nazi account. It was others too. So they've appeared next to multiples, and so they have permanently I don't know if they're permanently, but they're suspended their advertising use on Twitter. So it's pretty bad. That's pretty bad, and that's because, of course, if people don't know, Musk unbanned a lot of Nazi accounts and hate accounts when he took over Twitter. So, yeah.
This has real implications beyond not being able to see advertisements for Sports Illustrated, Gilead Sciences, USA Today, the National Internet and Television Association, or other brands. This has greater implications than that. For instance, Twitter is the great communications platform, the democratizer of communications in the world. And it's also an amazing, like for search marketers, the reach that Twitter has. Imagine if you're in a less commercially driven field, such as the sciences. For instance, a microbial engineer or ecologist at University Antofagasta in Chile said Twitter helped promote her research to people in her country and around the world. Without that platform, she wouldn't be able to get important information about about the ecology of Chile out to Chileans. Similarly, um, there's a number of alerts that need to go out to citizens in northern Canada. Um, Small towns, large towns, the city of Yellowknife, for God's sake, are being evacuated due to wildfire. Twitter is the communications channel that everybody can get messages through and from. It was a great platform, and again, you just can't be Nazi adjacent. So many people aren't even looking at Twitter anymore, much less messaging
Yeah.
across it.
And a lot of the scientists, just also because of the increase in trolls and things like that, they've just decided not to post anymore or not to tweet. The problem is that there isn't one place they're all going. So I use Twitter, like this. By the way, this report is from the journal Nature, which is one of the most prestigious ones. But I would use it like during COVID, and I'd find scientists who are talking about, like, I had long COVID and there's no treatments, but I would read the scientists what they were experimenting on. And for my fatigue, which was sleeping, Jim, I was sleeping 14 hours a day. I called you and said, I don't know what to do. And they suggested to use baby aspirin because there was microclotting. Nobody had done a major study on this yet, right? So I did that and it worked. And the microclotting must have gone away because my fatigue decreased like 90% in about a week. Not that it would work for everybody, but
And
that's
yeah, this
kind
is
of,
not medical advice
no,
whatsoever.
not whatsoever. This is just how I would use like medical Twitter or science Twitter. Also, there's a lot about, climate change out there from scientists who haven't, you're not going to see their stuff because it's in journals that we never read or don't pay for. But they would be on there talking about it. One guy did a whole 30 thread long thing on how to do PPC masking, and when are you, how do you do it to make sure you're safe, and when are you safe, and how to put it on, and all that sort of stuff. And I learned all sorts of stuff that actually made me feel more comfortable when I
And
went out in public
you know what
because I
else
knew
you've
how to
learned?
mask.
You know what else you've learned from Twitter? You've
What's
learned a
that?
whole bunch about SEO. You've learned a whole bunch about
I
PPC. You've learned a
did.
whole bunch about web mastering, and you've learned a whole bunch about how the internet itself works because of this communications device. But again, one can't be Nazi adjacent. It's
You can't.
impossible to defend advertising and funding Twitter at this point.
I do. I agree. I do think I'm just gonna. This is just a little bit of a sidebar, but you mentioned it. I do think there's a big loss here too, because back there are moments in Twitter time that have been hugely impactful to people,
Mm-hmm.
and one of those times was during Hurricane Harvey in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a hashtag needs help, and nobody was answering anybody. So I started answering people, and I started trying to find them help. And then we found people that had set up like quickly in a couple of hours ways to rescue people. And there was nobody on the ground that was doing that. And even the Texas Cajun Navy didn't get there yet. And so we used that needs help channel and other channels to get these people help. By the time it was all over, they estimated it was 10,000 people were rescued by people that were on Twitter and then also Facebook, but Twitter mostly, because that's where they posted that they needed help. And it was such a big deal that the Coast Guard in the United States actually changed how they approach disasters by using social media channels.
Sure.
That one
Sure.
thing. So we were on there for probably a week trying to help people, and it was pretty amazing. But something like Twitter is the only thing that can do that or could do that. Now it's a Nazi adjacent.
No, again, now it's a place that may or may not be used by civil authorities and may or may not be taken seriously by people
Yep.
who should be receiving urgent messages. And it's again, SEOs may or may not share information for other SEOs there because it's really hard when a bunch of crackpots just cut you down and talk about the World Economic Forum without understanding how it works. Okay.
Well,
Anyway.
no, we got two more things on Twitter. We do have to tell people real quick because
Okay,
it does really
like
affect them.
If you're still using TweetDeck, screw you.
Yes. As of today, they had threatened to put up a paywall. As of today, there is a paywall, $84 a year. You have to pay to use TweetDeck. And by the way, that is how I helped rescue people, was using TweetDeck. So I could put up all these columns in TweetDeck and follow them. So yeah, that's, unless you want to pay for that, and I don't think a lot of people are going to, that's that's done for you unless you pay for it. And then if you have Twitter Blue, now called X Premium or something, I'm sorry, I'm just using the old names. I can't even keep up with the
Well,
silliness.
they're calling it
Uh,
X Premium, but it's Twitter Blue essentially.
yeah, Twitter Blue. You will now have to give them your government ID and a picture of you from that day to keep that account. I never got Twitter Blue because I wasn't going to give most any of my money. But for people who did use it for valid reasons, there are people who need it for work and reach and stuff because it
So
limits your reach severely and you can't do videos and stuff. But you're going to have to put up he's going to store your ID and your photo on Twitter. And I don't know if I would trust that. I mean, you might, but what do you think, Jim?
well, I mean, if how to say this? Had Musk and company not behaved so badly so often in the past, had he been transparent about his motives and not been doing things on the fly, I would suggest this was the way that he was trying to bring some sort of heavy-handed accountability to people who use Twitter, especially if they want to be verified. But Musk also is training an artificial intelligence to work the X platform. We know he wants to diversify that platform to be the platform of all
Ooh,
things.
ooh,
And
ooh.
I don't think he's being very transparent about the reason he needs to have everyone's ID, because I don't think he's going to be holding people accountable to what they actually put up on Twitter, because
And we
he
know he's
hasn't done
not
it in
going
the
to
past.
we know he's actually not going to verify it either. So he's like, it's about bots. Well, nation
So,
states will just fake IDs. You just put two things together for me. Oh my gosh.
so what the
And
heck does he want this information for? My
I
stomach is
didn't,
churning all the wrong ways.
and one of his frenemies, best frenemies?
Oh, what's his name? Thiel. Um,
And what does Steele own?
well, he is a majority holder in PayPal and Palatar.
And
Palatar.
it's, yeah. Is that how you say it? I never know how to say it because I only see it written.
Yeah, I
Um,
only see it written to Palatar. I'm
so for
pretty sure.
those
Anyway,
that
that's
don't
the
know, it's a data
place.
mining software that's so powerful that nation states use it, including even our government. So if you add your ID with your real photo now to your Twitter account, and I'm not saying you should using that product, but you just struck on something big. Why would he suddenly want it? He's not doing
Indeed.
it to verify people on the account. He's not going to check that the IDs are real. He doesn't even have staff anymore. So what he's doing is something else. And you're right. I would tend to believe, although we don't have any proof of it right
No,
now,
no,
but you and I have
absolutely.
a
This is
pretty good sense of where things go.
1000% speculation.
Yes.
Anything I say, I'm saying because I'm a paranoid old man. But I got
well,
reason for
also,
this. I
we
got
also
reason
know
for
that
this.
how these things work. We've done this a long time.
Indeed.
So yeah, I tend to think you're right. I think he's doing something with the AI training and possibly even data mining. So yeah. Okay. So everyone, if you really feel the need to be able to write 30,000 characters or whatever it is now and have reach on Twitter, just be warned that you don't know what he's really doing with your ID. So that's
Okay.
those are the other two, but I think people needed to know that about that one, especially.
Let's have a little bit of fun and talk about Google. Just Google, just regular Google, Google organic. Nice, fun, no
That's
conspiracy
not
minded
fun
stuff. It is
today.
fun. Oh my God. Because you know what?
No.
Google might be getting a new logo. They might be
Oh, that
experimenting
might
with
be
a
fun.
new
Yes.
old style logo. Um,
Icky.
a logo that sort of harkens back to the nicer days of, the early 2Ks before Florida happened. I'm telling you.
It
Um,
does look quite old. It really does.
doesn't it though? Like
And very
really
dated.
angular, and the way they've curved the E at the end looks like so McDonald's in the 1990s.
Yeah, the yeah, it has a harder angular look and it doesn't look like those letters you put on your refrigerator, which the one now does.
What I want to
So
know
when you
is
have kids,
how many hours did Marissa Mayer argue about the angle of that E? That's what I want
is
to
she
know.
still there? I
No,
thought
no,
she's
no.
gone.
She became
Okay.
CEO of Yahoo. Oh my goodness, no. She
And then she
went
left there.
off. Well, she had two children, and now she's I don't know what she's doing. I think she's running
Oh.
a VC firm, but honestly, I'm not positive. I got so much respect for Marissa Mayer. I still do, even after Yahoo. Extraordinary person. She was
So
number
so the
14 at Google.
Yeah, that's right. So the logo, you guys can go look at it. It's just, I don't know why you would change it. It just looks very dated and kind of weird. The G has weird angles and stuff. And
If
the
you're
new one, the current one is like friendly and looks like kids' letters on a refrigerator. So
well, why would you change your logo?
yeah.
Because you have a whole new thing coming down the pipes. That's
Yes.
why.
And by the way, if you have been wondering why we haven't had any updates since March or April, and we're getting to the end of summer, which is very unusual because they usually do all these updates to get people set up for the holiday season, it is because most likely they have a product coming out called Gemini. Although I don't know what's going to be in search. I haven't seen specifically everywhere it's going to be. But did you find if it was in search, Jim? I know it's in their products for sure. But
They're
I didn't.
going they're going to be, I know for sure that Gemini is going to be acting a lot like Bing Chat does. Except it's going to be actually drawing references from search and throwing them into the generative text that's coming up on the side.
And they're going to create
Um,
images too.
Indeed, they're able to go into
Yeah.
the image database and draw images. Now, is it stuff from Google's image database, or is it stuff that Gemini is creating on the fly? I don't know.
They say they can create on the fly. I don't know if
Yeah,
they will
but
be
they
doing it
don't.
in search or not, but they might do it in like PowerPoint or something like that. So we'll
Like
see.
with Google, you got
I'm
to be
not
so
PowerPoint. That's
careful about.
Microsoft. I mean, sorry. I mean the
You
Google version.
you got to be
So
so careful with Google when it comes to the way they word stuff. The word can has a huge array of implications. Can is like we might do it. We could do it. We can do it. Are you doing it? Will you do it? I don't know. We can. You know what I mean?
we can. Maybe it could come. Meaning we're testing and we're not sure when we're actually releasing it generally.
No,
But
here's
has been weird that search has been so update free for so long after 2 years of literally update after update after update. So my guess is this will be somehow applied to search too.
here's one of the things I'm actually excited about with this. The lead of this project itself is Sergey Brin.
That's
Sergey
right.
and Larry stepped
Yeah.
back from the way Google operates itself back what in like 2010, 2011, somewhere then. They'd already brought in what's his name, the adult on the board. He's not there anymore either. Who's the old guy who was always with them? Oh my
Oh,
goodness,
Eric
Eric
Schmidt.
Schmidt.
Yeah, Eric Schmidt. Yeah.
So they already brought in Eric Schmidt, and they were scaling back their roles as interventionist co-CEOs. And then they retired. They were gone. They left the Googleplex.
Yep.
And
And then
things
they
went to
called him
hell.
back. And they
And
called him
things
back.
went to hell shortly after because Larry and Sergey had the vision. I think the way it worked out was like Sergey had the vision and Larry had the elbow grease. Um, and so Brin's in charge of Gemini. That is really cool.
It is. Although, should we move on to the SGE changes?
Sure.
So I'm struggling here. I think that the AI should be put under a different, like the LLM modeling should be put under a different tab because it's not search, and people do confuse it for search, but also because now they're putting for ads, SGE. Then under that, people also ask, or someone saw today, 3 featured snippets. So if you have a website, good luck getting anyone to click on it. And not only that, they're rolling out something new to help you while you browse, learning while you browse, it's called. So if you're in the Chrome browser, and I forget all the locations, like it's specific desktop and then something in mobile, they will pop up the SGG on top of your website and summarize it for people.
Yep.
So what happens to people's websites that rely on clicks, like who have ads or conversions or whatever, I do think at this point, Google has crossed a line. I thought SGE was crossing a bit of a line because it's not search and they make it look like search. But if I did that, me personally, and made the browser do that, they would be hacking. Like I would overlay my stuff on somebody else's website. That would be called hacking, but it's Google and it's their Chrome. So hey, it's fine, right?
This is the same thing that's happened repeatedly in pre-AI times to other sectors, like the travel sector. Google moved in, started putting booking information right on the front page. Suddenly, I don't have to go all through that travel site anymore, and they don't get X number of page views from me, which are probably substantial given I'm browsing because I'm interested. Google gets that, and it's much faster. I feel better because I'm done and I'm off to playing some stupid video game. And I've got my travel stuff booked, but the travel site has lost those important eyeballs. Same thing is happening here, except now it's going to be covering everyone.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, like seriously, I'm sorry. I
we'll call that the
really
Facebook effect.
yeah, there's an ethical issue with overlaying your SG on other people's websites so you can summarize them. And then like also they're like, oh, we can drop you into the article somewhere. Really? Because when an writer writes, often you really need to read the whole thing that the author wrote, not just some line out of it, because you may not have any idea the context, the setup, or the logic. So I think they have crossed the line. I really do. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think they've crossed the line here.
How to say this? They may have, they may not have. I don't know yet. I have to see how far they've crossed the line, what they've done to cross the line, what the actual effect is on traffic. I can tell you what my gut says, and it's not it's not good, but AI is going to be affecting webmasters and business models of everything, including the traditional labor business model. I have a body, I hire it out to somebody for so many hours a day. All of that is going to be disrupted because of AI, and it's going to happen really rapidly. So the questions I'm asking in my head is Google screwing people over? They've already answered that. Yes, they are, but they've done it many times in the past. This is just a big one.
This is really, but what are they going to do when they don't have a web to train on anymore? Because all the websites went under because of Google put their experience everywhere.
That's the whole thing. All the websites won't go under. People will find a way to do business around this. And that's where my head is going now. Adaptivity. I don't got to like this. There's a lot of stuff about the web I don't like at all. But my job is to bring as much traffic as possible to my clients.
Right. But if your clients can't get traffic because they laid in, I mean, you do have to click on it.
So I better come up with some answers fast is what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking that people are going to start avoiding Google Organic and put paywalls because they don't do this with paywalls. They're going to put paywalls up because people won't survive. I mean, I work with a lot of clients who's through ad-supported, sites, and people not getting to the site because they read the SG summary. Think about that. If you went to the bookstore, right? And instead of having to buy the book, they put up a summary of everything in the book that you could read while you're in the bookstore.
They did. They were called Cole's Notes. I don't know what they call. They were called Cliff Notes in America, Canada, and the point is they had that, or you could read the back of the book, or you could watch the movie. There was tons of ways that kids cheated in school and didn't read. I'm
not talking about cheating at school. I'm talking about you go to the bookstore and you see a book, and next to it tells you everything about the book, so you don't need to buy the book. I'm not talking about Cole's Notes. Or anything.
No.
I mean, literally,
that's
your
the point.
intent was to go to the bookstore.
The point I'm trying to make, Christine, is either you will buy the book or you'll find a way to cheat. The serious person will find a way to buy the book, even if the summary is right there. The serious person will still buy the book.
Searching is different. You're searching for information. So
I know.
Different. I'm just saying it's not. I'm hoping for a class action lawsuit. I hope the Fortune 100s get together and sue them and it's what a silly time to do this too. EU wants to break them up. Like literally, that's their next move is to tell Google they have to break up. And now they put out something that takes traffic not only in the search results, but from your actual website.
If you want to block Google from taking anything on your website at all, John Mueller this week told you exactly how to do it. Guaranteed you will never get Google on your website.
That's true.
And that's to disable DNS resolution to their IP.
I had a client that did that one day, 4 days before their biggest day of the year.
Why would they do that? That's insane.
I had another domain and I said, here, I have very specific instruction. Only this domain, not your main domain. This one needs, because there was a problem. It was doing some weird thing that was affecting the main site. And I wake up and it's like, because it used to take like 48 hours or so. Now, it was just instant. They were down like 30-40% in like 8 hours. And I was like, what did you do? And they, well, we did this and we took our, and they took their name off. They took themselves off the DNS.
So
So it
John
was like,
Mueller
oh my God.
was responding to somebody who persistently insisted you could remove a single page from Google listings, and then that Google could do this for them. Just wouldn't stop. And so I think John jokingly or exasperatingly jokingly says back, well, look, here's what you do. Just, disable DNS resolution entirely. You're probably solved within 2 days.
Yeah. John's been a little funny this past week.
He has. He's been salty as heck, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
I do. I mean, gosh, his job, right? I mean, I try to bother him as little as possible. I do bother him sometimes, but yeah, his job, like it's funny seeing the interchange. And lately he's been a salty pirate.
Well, and the funny thing is, John Mueller is don't want to stretch the word here, but I'd say he's an expert in how Google works. And he can be in a active live conversation with somebody saying it goes ABC. Promise you, it's ABC. And the person in the conversation is insisting it's XYZ, and they won't get off it.
Yeah.
It's maddening.
Could
you imagine?
Yeah, some people make money off of those things that aren't true.
There is no other John Mueller in the entire world. So anyway, one of the ones that they wouldn't get off of this week was the idea that you absolutely need your keywords or brand name in your domain name. That's a make or break thing for SEO. It's not. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it's extremely helpful to have your brand name, your company name in your business URL. A whole bunch of good reasons to do that, but SEO is not necessarily one of them.
No, it's not. I mean, there are reasons marketing wise you might want to do that, but
unquestionably. And it may actually be helpful in an SEO. It may be, but it's not a make or break thing. You're not going to be off of the charts because of this one thing.
But we have something else John said this week that's pretty important too.
Oh, this was a fun one though. I like and appreciated this one. You know how you got to argue back against certain clients who are like domain authority, blah 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 blah. And because domain authority, Google says this. Well, okay, cool. let's unpack that a little bit. Domain authority may be a perfectly valid metric if you know exactly how they calculate domain authority and what it means in relation to the things you're looking at.
Or you just compare ups and downs in the product. It's like it was at 60, now it's 30. That's probably a bad thing, but it's not officially anything Google does.
Yeah, Google doesn't care about domain authority. Mm-mm. If you can improve your website using that metric, Google is happy you've improved your website, but it's not because of domain authority.
True. True. Very true.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, John Mueller did some SEO myth busting this week, and one of the things is Google doesn't necessarily worry about third-party tool scores. In fact, it doesn't. Google uses its own
Not even Lighthouse.
Scores. Not even Lighthouse. Even though Lighthouse is modeled directly after tools that Google uses, Google doesn't care what Lighthouse says. But if you know how Lighthouse works and you can understand it in relation to your documents, then it could be a perfectly valid tool for you to use. But don't say Lighthouse, blah, 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 Google, because that don't mean nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of things John said this week, we should discuss about his rehash comment.
Yeah, indeed, eh? And this should be like perfectly obvious.
Yeah, well, it's not though, because most people don't know how LLMs work. So
large language models are not creative. They only look creative because they have a very, very, very large corpus of information to draw inference in how a sentence should complete itself.
Yes, how pattern mimicry.
relate to each other.
Pattern
And
matching.
they have a database of, as far as we know, everything that was ever written before September 2021. That's ChatGPT. There are others that may have been trained on other corpuses of knowledge that we don't necessarily know a lot about,
Right.
and they may be out there. I don't know. So we can't say with certainty about that at all. So guarantee, 100% guarantee, there's no possible way it works differently. That just cannot work differently. If you got AI writing your content, it's regurgitating stuff that's already there.
Yes, that's my new term, by the way. You know what? Oh, go ahead. I'll finish after.
Moreover, there's a moreover to this. When you see food on your plate, if you're like me, kind of sort of autistic, it's arranged very specifically because that's the way I like it. So you got my greens over here, and I got my meats over here, and I got my pastas over here, and you know what I mean? Like I got my grains here, and they're a little bit separated from each other. But the moment they go into my stomach, it all gets mooched up together, right? So what do you think happens when I eat too much and vomit? It just comes out, and it might be what it's supposed to look like. I don't know.
So I want to quickly tie this to something, and that is the helpful content update. And so I realized this week the helpful content update is to identify regurgitated content. And if you look at it, there's about 6 things in there that AI can't meet. And there's other types of content can't meet it either. It's not just AI, but it is looking at regurgitated content because Panda was low quality, right? So you already have a content algorithm, but it's looking for regurgitation. And so John has said, if you're just rehashing stuff, that's not really good content, no matter how well it's written by like ChatGPT or as another program, because it was trained to sound human and very confident. Because the LLMs can't go outside what they're trained on. So it has to be a regurgitation of what exists. And so he basically told people, you're starting from a bad place. Great content isn't automatically going to rank well, but making terrible content rank well is much harder. Starting with this kind of anchor pulling you down in an area that's already, where there's already a lot of reasonable press, even great content out there, is a recipe for failure. There's a longer quote. It's on a Search Engine Roundtable article by Barry, but that's the gist of it. So I have been telling people I think the helpful content update is related, and this is my opinion. But if you look at the helpful content ranking system and you look at it, you will see AI content really can't meet that, especially because it says a lot about original, unique, insights, personal experience. Those are all things AI can't do. So I would be cautious about putting that on your site unedited. Humans can edit it to make it that way, but then again, why don't you just write it at that point? My feeling, but you definitely need your human writers. Everything AI generated that goes on your website that Google sees has to be edited by humans at some point.
The reason you wouldn't get humans to write all that content is sometimes you just have a lot of content you need to write. But if you got AI writing it and you're not editing it, like AI is an amazing compiler. There's no question about that. It compiles information extraordinarily. Doesn't necessarily compile exactly accurate information 100% of the time extraordinarily, although it's getting much better, and you yourself as an AI prompter can make yourself better at helping it order information. But at the same time, it's filling in the blanks. It's filling in the way the sentence is supposed to statistically go.
Yeah,
And there's cases when it shouldn't necessarily go that way, because as any cook knows, changing a recipe just a little bit sometimes makes it really special.
yeah, but you definitely from what John is saying, is this is Matt Cutts used to like hit big sites first and then explain, and that was like your warning shot. A lot of people were like upset with what John said, like rehash is not. Anyway, the point is, I think this is your warning shot. That HCU is actually, just my opinion, going to be looking at your content, because he's saying it's an anchor pulling you down now. You know, originally it was like AI, we're fine with it as long as it's all these things that AI can't do. And now they're saying, oh, it's an anchor that's going to pull you down if you're just putting it on your website. And there's one other thing, by the way, outside of the John thing, real quick comment so people know, ChatGPT may be going broke. So you may not be able to use it much longer.
Well, or the cost of usage is probably going to increase substantially. I don't. They may be going broke. I don't see anybody allowing them to completely go out of business
No.
unless somebody wants to buy them at fire sale prices.
Well,
And can
remember
you
they're owned by,
imagine the 49%?
right. Yeah, 49% by Microsoft. But the other thing is that it's $700,000 a day to run ChatGPT.
Is that all?
And yeah.
Like, honest
And
to God,
he,
is that all? If it's 700,000 a day, that could easily be made up in corporate accounts.
well,
I can't
except,
imagine.
well, that's what the stat is right now from the article I have. But he wants to move into AGI, and he may just decide he doesn't want to keep putting that amount of money into ChatGPT. So we'll see what happens. But right now, it is on the verge of bankruptcy. So is OpenAI. So we'll see what they decide to do. AGI is the one, if for people who don't know, is the one that the scientists are all very concerned about and wrote all those letters about. They didn't write about like ChatGPT 4. They're worried about GPT-5, which could be artificial general intelligence, which is very different. Also, they put in a trademark for GPT-5, even though they said they weren't going to be working on it.
Now,
So,
here's a very real, like this you can't argue numbers here. That should put the Sam Altman and crew, but should make actually a little bit scared. It's been the first 6 months after Bing introduced ChatGPT into its search engine, it got a bump, but today its market share is actually lower than where it was today in 2022. It's
oh wow,
lost
I didn't know it
market
was low.
share over the last year. So
Well,
people went to it and were like, wow, this is really cool, and then stopped going to it.
well,
Like,
remember we talked about it. They were up 14% in usage, but they hadn't gotten any extra market share a few months ago. So they're paying a lot more for something that didn't attract new users.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it's unfortunate because Bing really is a pretty good search engine, but it just, for the life of it, it cannot find the way to get people to come use it and stay. So,
yeah, and the its nuclear bomb shot across Google's bow might have caused Google to introduce a gajillion AIs all at once and stumble its way across the stage for a couple of months. But in reality, Google didn't actually stumble that much, and Bing has yeah, Bing is again working to keep up. Um, I got a feeling Google's actually probably going to win the AI race because they're taking it more seriously.
well, we've talked about that, right? Google was the adult in the room. People thought they were behind, but they forget that ChatGPT was developed off a paper that Google Research wrote about making dilettantes out of something. I forget exactly all the words, but that's where it came from. So my thought was always that they were trying to be the adult and just release it in products as productivity tools and assistants, which is basically how they've approached it. And then ChatGPT was the kid who was like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And then Bing jumped into the market like, oh, we could use this to get, do better in search. But the winner is going to be the one, I think, who rolls it out into products and makes it simple and easy to use inside what you already know how to use, instead of just as a text LLM model. That's my thinking on it.
At the same time, we are still looking at vast sectors of the economy that are, if not outright threatened, already losing their jobs because of AI.
Yeah.
There was a large customer service, a phone bank in New Brunswick has replaced all of its staff with AI recently. Um, Now that was for that province of Canada. Call centers were an economic boon about 10 years ago, 15 years ago at the dawn of the e-com age. Those jobs are being replaced by AI, and not in the small scale, but on a fairly large scale. So this is still happening. And it's stuff that, like it or not, we as a society need to figure ways to adapt to it fairly rapidly. So either you as a worker need to adapt to it, or you as a community need to adapt to it. Either way, you got to adapt to it.
We also need to get rules and regulations in place so that,
That's part of the process.
yeah,
But
yeah.
rules and regulations take a lot longer than the tidal wave we ought to have a way of we ought to have a rule against those tsunamis, or at least know what we're going to do when they happen. Problem is, you don't know you need to until the tsunamis happen.
Yeah, that's true. And we didn't get to talk about it today, but I will mention this because it's relevant. I was at DEF CON this past week, and DEF CON has a policy village now, where people come and talk about policy, opening doors between government and basically the hackers that are there. And in the past, that's been about like not arresting good hackers who are doing like bug bounties or something. But now, because of AI and at an AI village, they're starting to talk to those people, and they're opening that line of communication. And that is direct. Apparently, I did not see this, but in the final report, I believe there were 8 people from Congress that came. And then Biden's main, I don't know what her official role is, but basically policy person for tech came. And they all sat in the room, gave speeches, and then had conversations. And I think that's a really nice bridge between the normal barriers between what we know and what they know. So it was nice to see that.
That was really nice of them to show up. But did they have cell phones on them? Do you know?
I managed not to get hacked this year.
Congratulations. That's the fun thing about DEF CON. You must be incredibly careful because if you have anything that can be hacked, you're going to be hacked.
Yes,
I mean, Faraday cage your credit cards, for God's sake. Just be safe.
But hey, so we can preview a little bit, because I know we're coming to the end here. Just real quick, we can preview going forward. I did talk to some AI researchers who specifically work with LLMs while I was there, and we're going to have them on the show, and including someone from the AI Resistance.
Now, yeah, quick warning to listeners ahead of time. We're not quite sure how to treat these guests. There's a good deal of what's the right word? Subtlety necessary when having these conversations, because these are actually the people who do the penetration testing. If anyone can tell you how to screw over society with AI, it's these guys. And for that reason, they themselves are under some fairly strict guidelines of where they can and cannot go in conversation.
Well, and yes, and also one will be anonymous because they work for a big company, and these aren't people that are nefariously trying to attack the models. These are people trying to protect LLM models from hacking, like data poisoning and prompt injection and things like that. And they can discuss the LLMs in great detail, so people better understand them because they are a big part of our lives now.
But
and
then
they can also talk about how you defend.
Yeah, remember how whenever Matt Cutts would say anything about Google, anything at all,
yeah,
like everybody would listen, good and bad.
Yeah.
Same thing with these guys.
So yeah. They know what they're talking about. They literally live their lives in large language models and how you protect them and how they can be attacked, but also how they work. Because they know, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions in our industry, and I don't know if our listeners are all industry, but about how they work. So you could hear it directly from the people that work with it every day.
Okay, so that's coming up on Webcology. We also have a couple of the old-timey set, people who've been around for a very long time, as talk a good deal about Florida, and hopefully we're going to have also a few new voices in SEO coming up in the next few months. We're going to see how all these go. We love having guests on the show, but we have gone full clock here on Webcology on WMR.fm. It is top of the hour when this podcast was recorded. Basically live to podcast on the 17th of August, 2023. On a personal note, happy 50th birthday, Karen. My baby sister is 50 years old today.
Happy birthday, Karen.
Yeah, she's my baby sister, so that can tell, that sort of ages me to the audience. Okay, so folks, be well, rank well, be kind to each other, read up on search, and have a great week. We will talk to you next week. On behalf of Christine Schackinger from Sites Without Walls, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. Stay well. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of WebmasterRadio.fm's management or sponsors. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without authorized consent of WebmasterRadio.fm is prohibited.